In a few weeks, Australians will again turn their minds to the soldiers who have served and died in uniform. The minute's silence on the 11th of November is a solemn pause to pay tribute to the nation's war dead. But a book launched in Perth today hopes to bring new attention to the sacrifice of Aboriginal soldiers. For decades, these men went to war to protect a nation that denied them the most basic of human rights. Andrew O'Connor reports.
Every human being in this country is now, whether he or she likes it, at the service of the government to work in the defence of Australia.
For more than a century, they've been among the ranks of soldiers who fought and died for Australia, but these faces have been long forgotten. Their service on the home front and the front line has remained largely hidden for decades, their contribution unrecognised.
They volunteered for the fight in a country where they had no rights.
Fighting in jungles and deserts and things like that with your mates and all in together. And when you come back here, there's nothing.
It was really bad for those boys who came back, and yet they were treated equally there.
I was trained properly. I was a forward scout, and I was ready. You know, I was ready to go and fight and die, you know, for my country.
And fight and die they did. They fought at Gallipoli in World War I. They served at home and abroad in World War II. They went on to fight in the conflicts of the Cold War like Korea, Malaya and Vietnam. But for many, the greatest hardship wasn't the danger they shared on the battlefield with their comrades, but the hostility and the racism they encountered when they returned home. Even today, the soldierly service of Aboriginal Australians is little known, but one West Australian woman hopes to change all that forever.
I hope that this work that I've done, and I look at it like a work, you know, changes minds and lives.
Genealogist Jan James has spent decades researching the lives of Aborigines in Western Australia. It was through her research that she stumbled upon a largely untold story.
One day I was looking at some records and I saw where it said father's occupation soldier, and I thought, no one ever told me. You know, I never knew.
She identified more than 700 West Australian Aborigines who served in the military. Through persistence, she also obtained their photographs, images she says finally give a face to the generations of Aboriginal soldiers.
It's about time, isn't it? Why shouldn't their service to this country have been recognised a long time ago? What is it about people that because someone's black or white that it makes a difference? They all did the same job. Mothers lost their sons. Some of them, you know, 4 and 5. Some of them had up to 12 people in one family who served.
Call out to God. Most unusual God this in all the Empire's army.
In World War II, newsreels portrayed Aboriginal soldiers as little more than a curiosity. But the truth was many were already serving side by side with other Australians on the front line.
They come from Australia's oldest family. They've got a fighting tradition thousands of years old.
While I was in the army, we were equal. She had the King's uniform, you was equal as you, like a white person like you.
Len Ogilvie came from a long line of soldiers. His father, John Ogilvie, fought in the First World War. Brother Wally fought in both the Second World War and the Korean War. Len joined the army in 1948 and saw combat in Korea, where he was wounded.
First, the corporal came around and he said, "We're prepared to move out. Things are getting a bit hot here." So I said, "Right, I'm ready." I never heard the word to get out. So we were left behind, and I was wounded, and my mate was killed.
In Vietnam, Aboriginal soldiers served in a bitterly fought conflict in the jungles of Southeast Asia. It was a war that divided the nation, but for soldiers like Dick Bligh, it wasn't a matter of right or wrong, but life or death.
We spent most of our time out in the jungle looking for people looking for people to kill. Yeah, that was my job. I was trained to go looking for people to kill them. We did an ambush and we killed, 5 or 6 of the enemy, and it was a terrible sight to see these people, with pieces of meat missing out of their bodies and so forth, and blood all over the trees and everything, and you don't think about that until after it actually happens.
These were Aboriginal people who served and went through horrific incidents, which is probably a nice way to put it. The blokes will tell you the incidents, and then to come back here and be treated like a piece of shit.
Former WA Magistrate Sue Gordon served in the Women's Royal Australian Army Corps in the early 1960s.
The discipline in the army was really no different to the discipline at Sister Kate's. And I always credit the discipline that I got in both institutions with the discipline that I still have today. Because if you've got discipline in your life, you can do just about anything.
While she says she was well treated in the army, she well knows returning Aboriginal soldiers found themselves excluded from even Anzac Day marches.
And I see that on the face of the boys that I grew up with, because they still remember that. But to see them when we have special occasions, and Anzac Day with their medals marching proud, just makes me feel beaut.
One of the students that's involved in the...
Before it was even published, the book had already struck a chord with young Aborigines. Jan James recruited a team of talented Indigenous students from the Northam Senior High School's Follow the Dream program to design its cover.
So it should make you feel proud of your ancestry and of who you are.
John Schnars of Honouring Indigenous War Graves says it was vital this story be shared with all Australians.
It was just an amazing story that she was telling us, and I thought to myself, this is something that, the population should know about this.
Today, Jan James' years of work was snapped up by an enthusiastic audience who share her view that it's recognition long overdue. She now hopes the book she meticulously crafted from her tiny home office in Northam will make a difference, not just to those who served, but to those for whom these stories are an inspiration.
I had a young man in here the other day, and I was talking to him, and he hasn't had a good life, and he's gone off the tracks many times. And I told him some of the stories of these men and what they'd done. And he thought about it for a while, and he said to me, do you know what? I feel like $1 million. I feel like that, what you've just told me, is better than any counselling I could have received anywhere, because I'm proud to be an Aboriginal.